Come on, Livingston. We gotta go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We gotta go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Road is long.
Now can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
Lead! And Livingston have the lead!
Man, and score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates! And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We gotta go.
Hello and welcome back to Talk Livy, the podcast dedicated to everything Livingston Football Club and Scottish football. My name's Euan, and it's the return of the prodigal son, some would say in podcast terms, and when it comes to Talk Livy. Andy, yeah, you're back for a wee impromptu visit to the podcast. How you doing, mate?
Yes, good. Thank you for having me. I'm under no illusions that I'm here as a guest today because you've been let down by the other two morons. But don't worry, I'm not doing a Robbie Williams. I won't be back for good. But yeah, thanks for having me on.
Well, that just shows the desperate times that we are under today, that I have even resorted to having to communicate with Andy more than just a Saturday afternoon at the games. So that says everything about the situation today. But anyway, as always, you can find this episode as well as all our other episodes on your preferred podcast streaming site. Just search for Talk Livy, so follow us to subscribe and ensure that you don't miss another episode. We'll start by talking about that incredible result against Celtic as the Lions once again shocked Celtic at the Tony Macaroni Arena. We'll then look ahead to our League Cup quarter-final tie as we travel to Castle Grayskull to take on Rangers. And finally, we'll preview our trip to the capital as we take on newly promoted Hearts.
Wow, you love that grey skull.
Obviously, I'll get it in any opportunity I can. Well, what a way it was to pick up our first 3 points of the season. A first-half stunner from Andrew Iniesta was enough to secure all 3 points against Ange Postecoglou's Celtic side. Andy, you were obviously next to me at the game. What were your thoughts on it?
Listen, what a tremendous result. We've got quite a mad record against Celtic at home, don't we? Really. It's one of those ones, though, you know, we spoke after the Dundee game last week, and I did say, you know, last week after Dundee that it was almost the perfect game for us, for me. You know, we picked up our first point against Dundee. We went into that game against Celtic with no really any pressure. You know, all the pressure was on Celtic. And almost a kind of relief off the players' shoulders, you know, getting that first point at Dundee. So, to me, it was almost the perfect game for us. Did I expect to get anything from the game? No, really. But, you know, what I wanted to see was a good performance, and what we got was a performance that was Livingston of old. You know, I felt throughout the sort of early stages of this season, we've gone away for what we were successful at was, you know, pressing teams, winning second balls, getting in teams' faces, throwing our bodies on the line defensively. Everything on Sunday just clicked for me, you know, and, you know, people say it's a shock result, but as I said, is it really? We have a record at home to Celtic. They seem to have this weird obsession with the pitch. You know, let's be honest, Motherwell have beat us at home this season. Aberdeen have beat us at home this season. We drew with St Mirren at home in the Cup. You know, so it's not like the pitch is that massive an advantage. And I think over the last sort of season and a half, we've almost had a better away record. So Celtic seem to have a sort of a mind block there. A lot of the players were exceptional. I thought special mention to Jason Holt. I thought he was unbelievable in the middle of the park. arguably for me our best player so far this season. I know he took a fair bit of stick last season for certain quarters of the fan base, but I think he's an unbelievable talent. I think we're very lucky to have him. I'm not going to lie, I was probably one of the other 1,000 Livi fans that looked at the team lineup at the start and thought, what the hell is David Martindale playing at?
I couldn't agree with you more. I was sitting in the pub and obviously putting up graphics and stuff for the podcast, and was chatting to Callum One. He goes, "What?" As he just looked at the team line, and I was like, "Right, read me that team again." That's like, and I was trying to do the calculations as to what we're playing, but we kind of still played a similar shape to what we have been, to be fair. You know, Jack McMillan, the epitome of a professional footballer, coming in from a fractured kneecap and coming back in and played centre mid out of position. Obviously, Shinnie played as like a false nine, and it seemed like it was Penrice and Williamson who were the two that were getting up in support of him, and what energy they gave in the middle of the park for us. Williamson, I touched on it in last week's podcast, he plays the game on the edge. He has a real kind of bite to him, and there was moments, don't get me wrong, where I was getting a bit concerned sometimes. I thought he was going to get involved in something. Obviously, the Rangers connection as well with Williamson. But he came off after an hour, and it was an unbelievable shift he put in. And then Penners as well. Again, I was chatting to one of the guys on the Pure Football podcast, and I spoke about Penrice, and I think his best game for us was against Aberdeen when he's played in midfield. And I think that was evident again. I thought he was fantastic against Celtic. Again, just that energy, the tenacity in the middle of the park, which is what we needed. And then you've touched on Jason Holt. Holt was unreal. Jason Holt was utterly, utterly unreal. And, you know, Andrew Shinnie, our new number 9, unbelievable. But you touched on it during the game, Andy. You make quite a valid point, and it's not often, again, I agree with you, but we seem to be going quite, you know, try to go in behind with Shinnie, which, let's be honest, Shinnie's not the quickest of players. It's not the way you're going to get the best out of him potentially playing that role. And we adapted as the game went on, and we started getting a bit more joy when we started feeding it into Shinnie so that folk could play off of him. And it worked brilliantly. And don't get me wrong, 15 seconds in, Nicky Devlin's picking up a yellow card. I was kind of fearing the worst for the day, but credit to Nicky, he's managed to go through essentially the entire game on a yellow card and get through it. But I don't think Celtic created anything clear-cut first half. I think Turnbull had one that he dragged past the post, but other than that, it was kind of pot shots here or there. Max had a bit of a scare with a cross that looked like it was looping in the back post, and Oblai's cleared it up. But the goal's brilliant. Again, tenacity from Penrice in the middle of the park, turning his man, releasing Jacko. It's a great ball by Jacko, and what an unbelievable finish by Shinnie. Great first touch. He's taken Welsh out the game with his first touch, and then you'll need to back me up on this, Andy. I said if we're going to score, it's going to go past Joe Hart's left-hand side because he can't dive to his left. And Andrew Shinnie goes and sticks it in the top bin. Unbelievable finish. And then we could have been 2 up before half-time. Hart's pulled off one of the... It was almost quite strange, the reaction saved from Fitzwater. He's just literally just stuck out an arm, and it's just hit his elbow, I think, and gone over the bar. So we could have been further ahead at half-time. But, you know, we managed to get in at the break, and second half, we were obviously going to be under a bit of pressure, but I think the manager's got, albeit it looked like there was a bit of confusion with the subs, but I think he's got the subs spot on. I think Bailey gave us a good out ball, as did Forrest. It helped us get out and up the park. Forrest could have added, put us 2 ahead. Again, Max has pulled off a couple of fantastic saves, one in particular from a Yeti, he's tipped round the post. But again, you know, there wasn't a great deal of clear-cut chances for Celtic, and I think that just, again, epitomises what you were saying. We were throwing bodies on the line, getting blocks in here or there, and we defended our box with a bit of pride, which we've been lacking. And I think we deserved it. I think we deserved everything we got from the game for the application that we showed.
Yeah, I think as well, you know, and you know, I've been quite vocal on Twitter this season about our defensive frailties. I'm not alone in that. I think a lot of fans have sort of raised concerns about defensively how worrying it was, certainly early on the season. But you know, all credit to Fitzy and Ayo. You know, I thought they were brilliant in the centre of defence. I think huge credit has to go to the likes of Jackson Longridge, Adam Lewis, you've mentioned him, Jack McMillan. All these players, were maybe written off a bit unfairly 5 games into the season, and without getting carried away, because we generally play well in these games. Like I said to you after the Dundee game, we generally play well in these games. Without getting carried away, if we can perform the way we did on Sunday for the best part of the season, then we'll be absolutely fine. Do I think we will perform like that every week? Probably not, unfortunately. But we've got a big run of fixtures coming, albeit we'll obviously come on to it. A couple of really tough games coming up, but after that we've got some really, really important fixtures, and I think if we'd gone into those games still without a win, it might have been a tough spell. But the fact that we're now off the mark and we're up to 9th now, it's never nice looking at the league table, even early on in the season, sitting bottom of the league and slightly cut adrift, so that win's going to be a huge boost to the players. You've seen how much it meant to them at the end. The fans were buzzing. The place was back to the way it was for me when we were on that run of 16 games without a defeat. The place was bouncing. The players were fighting for everything. And if we can get that mentality back and the players can put in similar performances for the next, well, hopefully for the whole season, but for the next couple of months, then we'll pick up enough points, I think, over the next period of time to see us okay. And I think, again, that's the main thing for us. I've said it over the years when I was involved in the podcast, that staying up was the main aim, and without being negative, it's been realist at the end of the day, and I think possibly a lot of people forget that, and especially with Hamilton going down now, the league is without a doubt a lot stronger this season than what it has been in our previous 3-4 seasons in the league. So, staying up is the main priority, and wins like that is only going to help, and it's really going to boost the confidence and the atmosphere around it. But yeah, massive mentions to the likes of Lewis, Longridge, Fitzwater, as you say, McMillan with the fractured kneecap. That's just unbelievable to come back so early and put a performance like that, and out of position as well. And Shinnie, as you say, Shinnie up top, done everything you would want to a number 9, 1 fouls, slowed the game down, 1 free kicks. And, in these type of games, you need a bit of luck as well. And I think we got them with Max spilling a couple of crosses that made me scream like a little girl at the end. I'm not going to admit that.
He definitely did. There was every dog in West Lothian heard it. It was that high pitchy scream when Max spilt the ball, but luckily Fitzy was on hand to clear up that potential mess, but just added to the nervousness of those last few minutes, didn't it? But just to pick up, Andy, on what you said with the likes of Adam Lewis, you need to bear in mind Lewis's last game was the game at Ibrox. He's not featured since there because he's been carrying a few knocks. I don't know if he was one of the players that might have had COVID at some point. Jacko's been out for the last few weeks. Jack McMillan hasn't played since Ibrox. And they're coming in and playing against a team that has been steamrolling teams at Celtic Park in particular. A team that's got this reputation of being wide, expansive, on the front foot. And to come into a game like that and put in the performances they did, I think just speaks, again, volumes of the attitude. I really like the look of Adam Lewis in there, centre mid. I think his use of the ball was very good at times, albeit he had he was involved in that scary moment early on when Nicky got booked to give the ball away. Wasn't the best of starts to the game, but I think he grew into the game as it went on. As you say, Jack McMillan, we talked about it at the game. He's the type of player I think any manager would love to have. He doesn't play every week. He doesn't have a kind of regular place in the team all the time, but I don't think it matters where you put Jack in the team. He will give you a 7 or 8 out of 10 performance. So reliable. As we say, he's played right, left back. He's played right midfield for us at times. He's played now centre midfield in a 3. And you would have thought he played there for years. He didn't look out of place in that position either. So, but Shinnie, as you say, Shinnie, he did everything, and I think there was a few folk comparing him to almost a Lyndon Dykes type performance against Celtic a couple of seasons back. Not 100% sure if he's going to live quite in Celtic centre-half's head rent-free like Lyndon did, but certainly we seem to live in Celtic players' heads rent-free regardless when it comes to playing at the Spaghetti Had. We just seem to have their number there, but what an unbelievable way to pick up our first 3 points of the season. I've said it for the last couple of weeks in the podcast. I think we just needed that one win to get us off the mark, get us on a roll. And I know we've got a couple of tough games which we'll come on to talk about, but hopefully it gives us a little bit of momentum going into these. And then we've got fixtures after Hearts where you're really looking at going, we could go and pick up a few results and hopefully start kicking on as the season progresses. It doesn't get much easier for the Lions as we travel to Castle Grayskull, looking to reach the last 4 of the League Cup for the second season in a row. Andy, I know it's a ground you hate to go to, but you are venturing along to Ibrox on Wednesday night. How are you feeling ahead of this one?
I think, as you say, it's arguably the toughest fixture we could have got in the quarter-final draw. It's arguably the toughest fixture in Scottish football. Are Rangers playing well just now? No. I think the most hardened Rangers fan would admit that they're nowhere near as sort of as strong as what they were last season in terms of performances just now. Does that make it any easier? Again, no. Albeit, I expect a very similar game to what we got on Sunday against Celtic at Ibrox. I think we'll try and frustrate Rangers as long as we possibly can. I think that's the tactic we use in all these type of games, slow the game down, take for absolute ever over goal kicks, throw-ins, free kicks, really, really frustrate the Rangers fan base, frustrate the Rangers players. And if we can go as long as possible without conceding, you just never know in these games. We've got a really good recent cup record, but this is probably our toughest cup game in a couple of seasons. We should go into it with confidence. It'll be interesting to see how we line up in the game. Do I see us going similar lineup? I think there'll certainly be changes. We looked dead on our feet after 70 minutes on Sunday. So there'll definitely be changes in this one because we will be expecting a similar game. And then obviously we've got such a big game at Tynecastle at the weekend. I don't think we'll be prioritising this just as much. I don't think Davey will be throwing the tie away. I think we'll be prioritising the weekend game more than this one. But you just never know in cup football. As I say, frustrate Rangers. They're not scoring as many goals. Watch this space. We'll get absolutely hammered now that I've said that. But, they're not getting as many chances. They're not creating as much. They're a little bit slower in possession this season than what they were last season. I've noticed that in games I've watched. So if we can frustrate them for as long as we possibly can, you just never know. And if we've got attacking players that can cause teams problems, we showed it on Sunday. Forrest and Bailey came on and done really well. Would it surprise me if they started in this game? There's a high possibility they will. We certainly will be making changes. But if we can defend properly, cut out the silly errors like we've done at the weekend, then why not? Why not?
I think one obvious change will be Williamson. I assume he's not able to play because of being on loan from Rangers. So that's one enforced change already. If you're looking at the team, again, we've talked about a lot of these players are coming back from injuries, haven't played a lot of games after the shift they put in against Celtic to then go and ask them to essentially do it all over again on a couple of days kind of rest period before going to Ibrox. At the end of the day, Rangers haven't lost a game at Ibrox, and I think it was the Hamilton game they lost a couple of seasons back. So in the league, certainly. So it's going to be an incredibly tough ask. But as you say, you never know. St Johnstone went there last year and caused a shock in the cup. So why couldn't it be our turn to do it? But it's an incredibly tough ask. I do think, as you say, there's going to be maybe, I would go as far as saying maybe 3-4 changes to the team because I can't see that same 11, obviously, or at least 10 players going and doing that sort of shift again in such a short space of time. And as you say, going to Tynecastle is never going to be an easy game. Hearts have started the season really well, so we're going to need to be full strength for that. What I noticed was Stefano Mionga has arrived in the country now. He was in on Friday. Whether he's up to speed or not, you never know. Maybe on the bench. We saw Pittman was back on the bench as well at the weekend. it's the type of game you probably like to have Pittman back in because the energy he gives you in the middle of the park. He might be an option to come in for Williamson, for example. Gives you that pressing from the front, kind of tenacity, as we say, in the middle of the park. I'd quite like to see Penrice back in that area again, because again, I think it's probably where I've seen him play his best football for us over both his spells at the club. And it'll be interesting to see what he does up top. Does he stick with Shinnie? Does he go with Anderson to try and exploit? Because Rangers are going to be playing quite high, you would assume. But it's whether he thinks Anderson's capable of bringing other bodies into the game and whether he goes for the likes of Shinnie again up there. But I was actually a bit terrified during the Celtic game when Shinnie started stretching his hamstrings. I thought we were going to finish with 10 men here. He's dead on his feet. So again, you don't know whether he's going to make changes for that purpose, But I can't see us tweaking the shape too much. We have been consistent playing almost a 4-3-3 or a 4-3-2-1. So I think it'll be very, very similar. But I think you might see the likes of Forrest, the likes of a Bailey coming in as well, just to give you the legs more than anything. And that little bit of energy after what was, I assume, for the players, an energy-sapping performance on Sunday against Celtic. Where do you think we can exploit Rangers then? The obvious one I think we always talk about is the fullbacks playing basically as wingers. Those are the pockets of space you can maybe get in behind if you're brave enough to do it. Would you say that's probably the area we need to look to try and exploit again?
Yeah, probably. You look through the Rangers side, and as I kind of mentioned a wee bit earlier, obviously they aren't performing to anywhere near the standard as they were last season, but they are still sitting top of the league. They are still in the quarter-final of the Cup. They've made it through to the Europa League's group stages, so they're still winning games despite not playing quite as well as what they were last season. You're absolutely right in terms of full-backs pushing up to play wing-back, obviously more like wingers, which gives me the thinking that we might just play those sort of 4 full-backs that we've done again, 2 covering and 2 playing further forwards, and that almost might allow us to keep those full-backs of Rangers a little bit further back, if we leave players up there. Whether that works out in reality is a different question. Whether we end up with 10 men within our sort of 18-yard box, that's probably the most likely outcome. But there's definitely opportunities there to get down the sides. I agree. I think someone up top with a bit of legs is probably what I would go with in this game. Whether that means Shinnie still playing and dropping back, is Pittman fit enough to start the game? Who knows? If we drop Shinnie back into that middle of the park and put Anderson up playing that number 9 role, I don't know. There's options there, and this is a good thing. Early in the season we bemoaned about the fact that we had injuries and COVID problems and sickness and all of this. We now have a squad of players that we can make these changes with. So there's positivity around the corner for me that there wasn't 2 or 3 weeks ago. I'm under no illusions. It's going to be a really difficult game. The only other one that I would maybe think about, I'm not saying it's going to happen, is the goalkeeping positions. Now, I know Stryjek played in the previous cup round, and that was perhaps a lot to do with the mistake against Aberdeen and not wanting to dent his confidence. But I'd be very surprised if we went throughout the whole season having brought our keeper in for Norwich City on loan and not played him. Is this maybe the ideal opportunity to bring him in? Albeit Stryjek has been in great form. He saved us up in Dundee. He saved us against Celtic on Sunday, 2 or 3 really good saves. But is this maybe an opportunity in a game that no one expects us to do well in, to give Max a little rest and maybe bring Barden in between the sticks and see how he gets on? That's the only other one I'm thinking might change.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. If you look back to the Cup quarter-final a couple of seasons back against Rangers, that's when Sarkic got an opportunity. He went into being a very important part of the season for us, certainly that first half of the season when he came in between the sticks for that game. Not saying that would be the same case with Barden, but you're not going to really know what the guy can do unless you give him minutes. And as you say, it's a good opportunity. He's likely to be tested a fair amount a game against Rangers at Ibrox, so it's a good opportunity to see what the guy can do. We've only seen him the once against Cowdenbeath, and it's quite difficult to judge a keeper in that sort of game when we're going to be dominating the ball the way we did. So I agree with you. I think it's a good opportunity to do that. And as you say, rotate the keepers, give Max a wee break. He has been in good form. It's I said it going into that game against St Mirren. Typically, I would have said put Barden in, but I think after the mistake Max made, I think it just would have dented his confidence even more. So I think there was more psychological reasons behind keeping Max in. But I would agree with you with that one. But how do you see it going then? Let's force your hand for a prediction. I know you're absolutely guff at them, so it'll likely be wrong. But anyway, we'll ask you for one anyway, Andy.
I have got more predictions right since I left the podcast than I did during the 3 years of doing the podcast. You know that.
It's no hard. It's no hard.
Absolutely. No, I think it's going to be a difficult night, despite Rangers' sort of shortcomings so far. I think it's going to be a difficult night. I mean, when was the last time we got an absolute doing at these places? We've not really had a proper doing at these places, so I don't think it will be anywhere near sort of that again. I think we'll really frustrate Rangers. We'll be compact, but the quality the Rangers have got, they will eventually break us down. I reckon 2-0 Rangers, unfortunately, but a good performance for us is what I'm looking for.
I'm going to go 3-1. I think Rangers don't look quite as assured at the back. I think we are capable of scoring against them. But yeah, I think they have immense quality, don't they? And don't get me wrong, we've kept 2 clean sheets on the bounce, but it doesn't mean I'm completely doesn't mean it's defensive problems are solved all of a sudden. I think Rangers will be able to open us up. Because it's a cup tie as well, you'll typically be a little bit more open. So yeah, I think 3-1 Rangers, but here's hoping we can go and do an Old Firm double this week and reach the semi-finals and another trip to Hampden. Lastly, we make our second trip to the capital, but our first trip to Tynecastle to take on newly promoted Hearts. Andy, you're obviously making a trip to this one as well, despite the £27 price tag on it. But how do you see this one going? Are you full of confidence going into it, despite the fact Hearts have started the season well?
Do you know, over the years, these are the type of games, and I've been speaking to a mate at work who's a Hearts fan, and he's more concerned about this game than what he is about the Celtic games, the Rangers games, Aberdeen games, because he says these are games that they notoriously struggle in, albeit it was away from home, but we've seen a bit of that on Saturday when they drew with Ross County 2-2, a game that Hearts fans would fancy them to win, and they ended up getting lucky and getting a draw after being behind. So, listen, I'm under no illusions. It's a tough place to go. It's arguably one of the best away grounds in the country for me. Fans are right on top of the players. It's a daunting atmosphere, but again, it's the type of game we play well in. I say that for the Celtic game, big crowd, we perform. There'll be a big crowd there, albeit 95% Hearts fans. But again, it was the same on Sunday when Celtic took over the Tony Mac. We perform really well in those situations. It'll be, again, I said it for the Rangers game, I said it for the Celtic game. We'll be going in to looking at frustrating Hearts. Slowing the game down. Like I said, taking forever over goal kicks, throw-ins, corners, free kicks, everything like that. Really, really frustrate Hearts. Get under their skin a little bit, and hit them on the break. We play well at Tynecastle, albeit without the results, really. I don't think we've got the results that we've deserved at Tynecastle over the years. So, why not? Why can't we go there and pick something up? Hearts are obviously in great form. They'll be eyeing this game as a must win if they are to keep their record going. And some weird Hearts fans think they're going to challenge for the league this season. Which is just not going to happen regardless of how well they're performing. But this will be a game they'll be targeting to pick up 3 points, and we can maybe use that to our advantage, get the Hearts fans frustrated and on top of their own players, because as a Hearts player, it's a hard place to play if things aren't going your way. Hearts fans are notoriously impatient with their team. You just need to look at the reaction under with Robbie Nielsen. It's almost that Derek McInnes scenario. They don't know how good they've got it. They didn't know how good they got it in his previous spell. He's got them up into the Premiership. They're now sitting, whatever it is, third in the league, on the same points at the top. But they're not happy with his style of football. And to me, it's absolutely mind blowing the fact that they're not happy with the style of football, despite sitting where they are in the league after being promoted. Let's not forget they got relegated with 4 wins. They were a poor side. So yeah. Listen, I'm under no illusions. It'll be a really tough game, but I don't see a reason why we can't go there and pick something up after the way we've played against Celtic. A lot will come down to how we do midweek against Rangers, what kind of players are available, if we pick up any injuries. But if we can put in that same dogged performance against Hearts, frustrate them, there's no reason why we can't go there and pick something up.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, if I look back in memory, I think the only time I remember us getting a proper doing at Hearts was, I think, when John McGlynn was maybe manager and we lost 5-0 there. I think that's the only doing, and from my memory, that I can genuinely remember there. The reason I remember it is because my dad had missed it because he was away at the Ryder Cup. So he was watching Europe win the Ryder Cup at Glen Eagles, and I'm watching Livi getting absolutely battered by Hearts. But anyway, yeah, you're right. It's one of these games we seem to thrive in, isn't it? Bit of a hostile atmosphere, big crowds. We seem to enjoy going to these places and frustrating teams. And don't get me wrong, Hearts have started the season really well. I think some of the recruitment's been quite good as well. But I think you take inspiration from some of the performances last season in the Championship. Nielsen got widely criticised last season despite winning the league, and it was due to the style of football. But it's very different, I think, in the Championship with Hearts being the scalp. And teams would naturally go and sit in against Hearts and try and frustrate. And it's a totally different game rather than teams opening up. And I think you've seen that. You talked about Ross County getting a result. Typically, they're going to sit in a little bit more against Hearts and try and frustrate, especially with the run of form that they're in. So I think that's something we've proved that we're quite good at over the years. And, we've got a result to back it up against Celtic now. So I think we're capable of going to Tynecastle and getting a result. But they've got players that can hurt you. Across the park. Boyce is in good form, good striker, really good striker at this level. Gary Mackay-Stevens started the season very well as well. They do have players that can hurt you, and again, it's that, can we keep a clean sheet against them? Can we see it out and nick something? I don't know. How we set up against them, I don't know. It's a bit difficult to predict. I think Davy proved you can't predict a Davy Martindale lineup. I would say he's now the Scottish tinker man. He's like the Claudio Ranieri of Scottish football. He does like a wee tinker now and then. So whether he'll go with a very similar team to what played against Celtic, again, it would seem like a logical thing based off that result and the type of game it is. But I think we're capable of going and hurting Hearts. Hearts have been playing with a back three, so it leaves the wide areas a little bit open. Could maybe allow for the likes of a Forrest Bailey type player in there to try and stretch them and get into those little pockets of space to try and exploit it and get something out of the game. But it's a really tough game. Every time you go to Tynecastle, it's tough. But we know what the recipe is to get results there. It's to be compact, be tight, frustrate, get the crowd turning on them. And then that's when you can start to really get yourselves into the game. In terms of personnel-wise, what do you think then? Obviously, I've mentioned Forrest Bailey. Is that something you think could work? Or do you think it's going to be more similar to what we're talking about for the game at Ibrox, which is maybe doubling up in those wide areas, fullbacks, double fullbacks, etc.?
I think it's a really difficult one to predict lineup. You've just said it with Martindale. I think one thing we've all learned after the weekend is never question David Martindale again. But it is such a difficult one to predict. Hearts almost play, Boyce up top on his own, but they've got so many sort of attacking midfield runners that they can call upon. You mentioned two of them there. Jamie Walker's another one that can play in behind. Ben Woodburn on loan for Liverpool, who I've been really impressed with in the games I've seen. So they've got a lot of options there. it wouldn't surprise me at all if we go with 2 sitting midfielders in there to try and combat those midfield runners and squeeze the gaps between the lines. You know, as you say, Davies notoriously a tinker with his side. You know, he looks at the opposition and sees where their strengths are and tries to neutralise them. To me, that's where Hearts' strengths are. You know, those midfield runners, the ones sitting behind the striker. Boyce, albeit he's had a great start to the season, but I think that's a lot to do with the players behind them creating chances for him. So if we can neutralise them, you know, that almost takes Boyce out the game completely. Is Boyce going to beat Ayo in the air? Is he going to beat Fitz in the air? Will we neglect the wings almost, allow them to put crosses into the box and hope that we can defend our box properly? Wouldn't it surprise me? You know, as long as we can almost try and keep the game within the 18-yard box, then you know, that's something that might work. I agree with you though. I think the way to get at Hearts is with some pacey wingers. You know, so that almost takes whatever I've just said completely out of the equation, because we can't play 15 players, can we?
We should give it a try. I think it's something we should try and exploit one time.
The referee might not know. I say that some of them don't go as Specsavers, so you know, that was almost the Charlie Nicholas line.
It wasn't quite as bad, to be fair. You managed to save it there. You stopped at the right time.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, but listen, it is a really difficult place to go. I'm really looking forward to it. You know, as much as we took the piss when Hearts got relegated, you know, Hearts are a Premiership club. You know, they're one of the biggest clubs in the country. I don't think anybody will argue with that statement, and they should be up near the top of the league. You know, with the players they've got, with the support they've got. You know, so, and you know, something I'm really pleased for Craig Halkett, who's gone through a really difficult spell at Hearts. You know, a lot of Hearts fans have wrote him off, but he's came in this season and performed exactly the way that most Livi fans would expect him to. Has been really dogged at the back and sort of, you know, almost captain material the way he bosses the back three about for Hearts. So I'm really pleased for him, but I hope we get one over on him on Saturday. And,
oh yeah, I mean, Craig, love you to bits, absolute legend. I hope you have an absolute stinker on Saturday. If you do listen still, I hope you have an absolute rotten afternoon. But
I can get behind that.
But if I was to force you for a prediction for Hearts, are we going to be a little bit more confident than Ibrox? Do you think we can again pull off another result there?
1-1.
You've taken my idea. I was going one each and all. God, I've agreed to be twice on this podcast. I feel dirty.
Great minds think alike.
Oh, I feel dirty. I need a wash. But yeah, here's hoping we're right. Here's hoping we can go and get a result at Tynecastle and really kick on. As I say, getting that result against Celtic's got us off the mark, but let's go and back it up with another positive result in the league. Well, Andy, thanks very much for making a wee appearance. I'm sure you'll probably be back on at some point, because the other two are just, to be fair, they're abysmal. So I fully expect you might get an SOS call every now and then. But thank you so much for coming back on. I really appreciated it. It was good to have you back on as well.
No, listen, absolutely. You know, it's probably the first opportunity I've had on the podcast. You know, I obviously made my statement like some sort of official on social media when I left the podcast, but
you're actually
really
leading the statement league this season in Scottish football. You've actually made more statements than all the clubs put together.
No, listen, it really was the best sort of 3 years doing the podcast. I loved every minute of it. You know, circumstances mean that I can't dedicate quite as much time to it this season, but you know where I am. I'm more than happy to jump on occasions. You know, I love talking everything Livingston. You know, I appreciate all the comments that were made from supporters. In fact, I was quite amazed, you know, going to the cup games and 2 or 3 folk came up to me and says, you know, is everything okay? You know, it absolutely meant the world. It really did. So if that was you, you know, thank you so much, and thanks to everybody for listening. But what I would say is the guys are doing a tremendous job. You know, I've still listen to the episodes. They're still terrific. So keep listening, even without me, even without the star man. Keep listening because the guys are doing a terrific job. And Euan, thanks for having me on again today.
God, you really milked that. But thanks again to every single one of you for tuning in as always. And if you can, we'd love to hear your feedback. Leave us a review on iTunes or simply message us on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram. You can also find all our episodes, including this one, on all good podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if none of those options suit you, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode that we've done over the last few years. But that's it for this week. Thanks again for tuning in and listening. Thanks again to Andy for joining me this week. And hopefully it's another brilliant week following the Lothian's finest football team.
Livingston. No.
I'm definitely leaving that in.
Fuck off.
Livingston, oh Livingston, into the primitive.